A story like the baby parts story may have taken years to percolate. Now with social media, it can be around the globe in seconds. And in fact, with this baby parts story, we've seen a resurgence where people on WhatsApp in Mexico are spreading the same kind of story about wealthy Americans adopting babies, harvesting their organs. These things never die.
The public opinion is awakened to the assault on our societies. It's not going to approve, and it's going to approve of strong countermeasures.
In terms of responsibility, it's the U.S. government's responsibility to protect Americans from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and so this fits in their mandate. But what is the strategy to deal with this? It's never been briefed. That should be done at the national security staff level, and it should come from the president himself. It only takes an ounce of humility, really, to advance that and put it forward.
Have you seen any Russians in West Virginia or Ohio or Pennsylvania?
There's a fundamental, massive gulf right now between what the U.S. government and intelligence agencies are doing in conjunction with Silicon Valley. There's a major, major gap. That gap has got to close if we're going to protect our democracy.
There's been small improvements in campaign security, but we have not seen the kind of massive upgrade in campaign infrastructure that you would need to stand against a professional hacking agency like that. And the truth is if that happened again today, if today WikiLeaks dumped out the email inbox of 5 Democratic Senate candidates, I don't think anything would change.
It would have, in my judgment, made a real difference if every time the hacked content was used in news, instead of attributing it to WikiLeaks, which sounds like a news organization, one were to instead have said the Russian hacked, illegally gotten information stolen from the Democrats being offered to us by WikiLeaks, a group that is headed by Julian Assange, whom Hillary Clinton favors prosecuting for his misuse of classified information.
I think you have to view hacked emails and this disinformation campaign holistically. You have to view it as one larger thing. The Trump campaign had set the stage where nothing was unbelievable with what Hillary Clinton could do, the evils of Hillary Clinton, right? So they created this environment, and then within this disinformation environment, sort of everything was fair game.
Can democracy survive social media? Sure, if the social media platforms step up to their responsibility.
They have all these excuses of why they're not doing their job.
I wish I could tell you that we're going to be able to stop all interference, but that just wouldn't be realistic.
There's a very big difference between fake news and free speech. There just is. It's not the same thing, but again, they lump it all together so that you're confused, and obviously everyone's going to be for free speech. But fake news is not free speech, it's lies, is what it is.
This was where Facebook had to really kind of revamp its policies to talk about account authenticity. None of that content came down because it was de facto objectionable. It was propaganda, and propaganda is a form of political speech, and propaganda is, of course, allowed to exist on social platforms. And in my opinion, should be. It's a form of communication. The problem is when the platforms amplify it.
They have to rid of fake accounts. That's where it starts. They have to get rid of all these bots. They've got to get rid of fake people making up fake news to manipulate things. They can do this. They can do these things. I know they say it's hard. I don't care if it's hard. They're making billions of dollars. That's their job, is to make it clean.
Most of our content policies center around behaviors, things we don't want you to do on the site, like harassing and bullying is a great example. But beliefs are much more complex. And we don't believe it's appropriate for a private company or me as an individual or even the government to decide what people can and cannot say, and particularly around political topics. One of the founding principles of this country is this idea of free speech. And free speech does have restrictions.
We need legal standards around political advertising online. The companies are trying to apply 1980s and 1990s laws meant for television and print ads to online advertising. And the current laws don't fit how people advertise in 2018.
Facebook did not have control of its platform. They've never spent enough time making certain the data they've been entrusted with by users was safe. And that's really, it's a very simple situation here, as much as they like to complexify it. They didn't keep your data safe, and they didn't monitor the people they gave it to.
We shouldn't sugarcoat the consequences. This is surveillance. And these stockpiles of personal data serve only to enrich the companies that collect them.
What critics call surveillance capitalism, the idea that by engaging on these platforms, you're communicating information to the platforms, which is allowing them to target you with ads, but also radicalize you.
Democracies, free societies have enormous resilience, whereas dictatorships, authoritarian regimes can be very strong and controlled for decades, and then it can just split open because they've repressed people's natural desires. I wouldn't bet on the West or free societies dissolving as a result of this assault, but can't ignore it either.
Democracy can survive social media because social media has an unprecedented capacity to give us good information as well as bad information. The question is, can we create receptivity in the electorate to the good information? And can we increase the likelihood that when misinformation, regardless of source, comes into the electoral environment, its source is scrutinized?
Ultimately, though, I think the power to change this comes in two forms. One is the social media companies. As much as we criticize them for missing it in 2016, they've made far more advances in terms of stopping this disinformation than the U.S. government has. They've really come around and started to identify accounts. They've changed their policies and procedures. And they've done a number of takedowns. Even those that have been slower have finally moved that way. Overall, it's the American people and civil society that will stop this.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.